And we're live on the 5 a.m. Mester Scrum show. I didn't realize we were live for there for a second. I'm like, where's everything? But we are there. We're still getting back into the swing of things here. And where's my phone? I just heard something go off. Anyway, it's 5 a.m. Mester Scrum Show. I am Greg Mester, Scrum Master and Agile Coach. Thanks for joining us. Yesterday, I had a little snafu. I set everything up. Everything's ready to go. And I realized I wasn't even connected to the internet. I'm like, oh, God. And it was a total disconnect. I had to try to troubleshoot. By the time I troubleshooted, I'm like, I got other things I got to do. And just rolled through it, just moved on. I do have the topic but I'll save it for next week because it is a teaming topic related to the jury trial. I guess I could also relate the topic we're going to talk today to the jury trial too. I could do that, but I had to physically unplug cables, and I have backups. I have like 2 different cable systems because, to be honest with you, neither one of them are the best. Some do one thing better, some do the other thing better, but neither one answers all the needs of the household. So I just unplugged from the business one, plugged into the other one, and was able to do my job, but definitely would not be able to do a live broadcast. So we didn't do it. So what's today's topic? After I said all that, one, still trying to get back into, but storytelling. I was listening to a podcast. I was listening to School of Greatness. Highly recommend it. It's good stuff. They have good stuff and some things that may not click with you, or may sometimes, to be honest with you. But I like some of the topics. They had a person who was from Pixar, and they're talking about storytelling, and it made me reflect on telling stories 2 places. I didn't write it in the notes, but the jury trial. That lawyers did a terrible job of telling a story, and then how years ago, dealing with some system engineers, want to make some changes, and I made them write the story on how the current Army Platoon works before you go making changes or suggesting improvements, because unless you know what's going on, but they wrote the story, they created the story. It allowed them to have the vision before they wrote all those requirements. So that's what I'm getting into. Telling a good story helps you write those requirements, gives vision to the person developing those requirements, testing those requirements. And that's why we write stories in a way, as so-and-so, I want this, so that. It's trying to tell the story. If you do not tell the story, it loses its thing, its panaz, its goal, its mission, its sense of accomplishment. And it was interesting listening to the podcast that I was talking about building stories for Pixar. So it's 5 a.m. Mester Scrum Show. I am Greg Mester, Scrum Master and Agile Coach, and today is 3R Thursday, requirements, reviews, and retrospectives. Today we're going to talk about requirements a little bit, writing stories to help introduce the vision. And we do this so we can bring value to the customer, not work crazy hours to do that, and have a little fun along the way. Sometimes telling the story is the fun part, right? Then you fit all the pieces to make the story happen. So the idea is that what I see a lot of times when people write requirements, and I try to encourage them, is to write a story so that anybody who sees it can understand, like, kind of where you're heading or where the story goal was heading. And I think of it in 2 spots. One, creating a vision from a business perspective, what the customer is going to do, and 2, creating a vision for the architecture. If you have ideas and how things will put together phases, like this is phase 1, phase 2, there should be a story behind describing that, so the people working on the project can have a vision of what the goal is. And not that it tells them exactly what to do, but gives an idea of how the initial vision was. Because it's interesting, the Pixar people in the podcast for the School of Greatness, when they were discussion, talked about sometimes they had a vision board, and they were talking about the Spanish, the Day of the Dead one, right? And they're talking about it. They had a vision board, but what was on the vision board was not what the end was, but it gave them a place to start shaping that overall vision as they worked on the project. The same thing goes with Scrum teams. Same thing goes with Agile. Same philosophy. And that was one thing from the podcast. And then I was reflecting on back in the day, I had some system engineers that wanted to make some changes to the spec or tell the Army how to do stuff. I said, before you do that, do me a favor. In the beginning of your requirements, draw down how the current platoon operates, how they might envision using the product that you're building, then go write the requirements. So they did this process where they documented the current operations, timings, things, stuff, computers, what they touched. And that helped give them a baseline. They all came back to me and said, Greg, that was great. It gave us so many more possibilities of what we could do to improve and make it better for the platoon or the troops. And they came up with that. The same goes through with what we do in our day-to-day. So 2 parts. One is make a vision, a business vision. And it was funny that one of the things in this podcast, the guy says, it wasn't about the technology. We knew we did it right when it wasn't when they went and displayed the Pixar and they're going to go public and they saw the first movie. It wasn't a conversation about the tech. It was a conversation about the story, the business aspect of it, right? They knew they had a success. So part of the story is, what's the business vision? What's the vision on what they want to do, why they want to do it, what's this going to allow, how they currently operate. Capturing that and transforming that is what the overall goal was. It wasn't the new technology. Now, since we are tech, how we might incorporate that technology to achieve that overall business vision is also important. So you get a business vision, how you expect the customer to be using it, and in the end, how you might lay out that vision of implementing the tech or solutions or different aspects that give some guidelines or vision points for how the team might implement the solution. Now, the team can come up with that, but sometimes it depends. Sometimes you have architects that give a little vision on how all these systems would, especially a large system, and how they interact. But I wanted to share that with you. It's important to write a story in the beginning of the requirements. Do not go diving straight into, here's your requirement, go figure it out. Write a story, get that thought process out of your brain and how you envision the team developing that product in the end, or how do you envision the customer using the product. If you don't have that, you're going to have a lot of troubles. And that's why we do goals. It's a high level thing, implementing and building such a system. So I wanted to share that with you today. Next week, I'll share with you on the team activities. And why do I bring? So in the jury trial, right? The lawyers kept going to us, connect the dots. I'm like, shouldn't you be telling us what you think the dots are? I mean, this is like the closing argument. What you envision the dots, rather than leave it up to our imagination, is probably why it took 4 days to go through the jury, or 2 days of deliberation, and we were deadlocked in the decision because they didn't do a good job of telling the story for either lawyer, whether it be the prosecution or the defense in this criminal trial that we had to sit through. So everyone in the room was going through all this stuff on trying to connect those dots, and it just took so long for people to figure it out. And some people had 2 different paths. They came up with 2 things, and some things we were all agreement on, and one of the bigger charge split the ways. We went 2 different ways, and in the end, we never came up with an agreement because no one ever told the story, whether it be on the prosecutor or the defense side, what those connection of dots were. And then we would have took the facts and figured out that the facts met their story that they wanted to tell. We didn't have that. So the key was they missed the story. They were so going around it and soft pedaling everything. There was never any story told for the jury to figure out what it was. They were left on their own to figure it out. And it was a muggled mess. And the same thing as the requirements and development. Don't leave it so much on their own. With that, I want to say, have a great day. Happy scrumming. See you tomorrow. Enjoy. All right. Take care, everyone. Bye. See you again.